Hey everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, founder of Building Better Brains. It's a gorgeous day outside, and I wanted to hop on though to just talk about something that parents ask me all the time, and that is there more kids that are struggling today, or are we just recognizing it more? Is there what we say better diagnosis? And I think 100% we do have better diagnosis. There's no doubt about that. But we also have to be careful not to dismiss that in terms of causative factors, because that explanation alone does not account for the insane rise in childhood disorders. And I will tell you why. I'll explain the research or science behind it. So, number one, I like to say if you consider what peanut allergies and handwriting or poor handwriting have in common. And what that is that in the last, I'm going to say 15, 20 years from what I'm hearing and reading about, first of all, not just peanut allergies, but food sensitivities and allergies have absolutely skyrocketed, have gone through the roof among children, and serious, like anaphylactic food allergies, right? Where like the bulletin boards in this teaching staff room are covered with kids and the list of everything they're allergic to and so forth, which if you talk to teachers from like 20, 30 years ago, say there was like one kid, if that. So we know that, and this is common knowledge, right? We know that kids have really serious food allergies compared to any other generation. And the other thing that's really interesting is that kindergarten teachers particularly picked up on this. The ones who are seasoned, if you will, so older and have been in the game for a while, notice that with every passing year, the fine motor development with their students was declining more and more, that it was, more underdeveloped, and they were less, these kids were less able to do what previous children or previous generations, I guess you could say, were able to do. And they were like, what is going on? What has changed? So, number one, we know kids have way more food sensitivities. That tells us something is wrong with, I don't want to say wrong. I mean, yes, wrong, but basically there's a major imbalance going on in our environment. Kids are biochemically sicker. They have more autoimmune conditions than any other generation. In fact, it's worse in places like the US. Some of that's been linked to glyphosate, among other things. And so that alone is huge. And then you throw in the fact that these kids have much poorer motor development, both gross and fine motor skills compared to previous generations. And this has become such a problem that it like has been the topic of a lot of research in the last 10 years as to why motor development is so poor or lacking at a certain age compared to previous generations. So we know this is not just better diagnosis. And if you take into account, I always say like to remind people who are old enough, when I was a kid, we used to be able to bring a peanut butter sandwich to school, and it wasn't like bringing a bioweapon. Today, if you bring a peanut butter sandwich to school, like everyone freaks out and you're not allowed to. And you probably know this because you've probably sent your kid to school with something that might even look like peanut butter. Let me know if you've had this experience and your child comes home and says, I'm not allowed to have this because the teacher thought it was peanut butter, or the teacher said I'm not allowed to have this because it looks too much like peanut butter, and so forth, right? The fear is insane because of how serious this is. And then you have schools are not allowed bringing tuna, they're not allowed bringing eggs, they're not allowed bringing this, they're not allowed bringing that, because there are so many kids with food allergy that are life threatening. So we know something has changed in our environment, biochemically, with toxins, gut health, all that type of stuff. Some of these things in our modern life are positive, right? Like we need like antibiotics from time to time. They can be life-saving. We don't want to I know I don't want to live in a world where they don't exist at all. But they also come with repercussions, especially if we don't, take the measures that we need to take in order to avoid problems with antibiotics. So that's number one. And then number two is the whole modern culture has really changed our kids' brain development. So it's really altered the way that kids' brains are organized and having weak connections, having part of what I call their baby brain still on. And what that really means is their infant reflexes or primitive reflexes are still present. So that's going to create problems with everything from learning to behavior and emotional regulation and all of that stuff. And like part of it's our kids aren't moving enough, our kids aren't being challenged enough, our kids are too scheduled. And this is, again, I always like to say this, not about you blaming yourself, or that you did something wrong as a parent or that you failed. It's really just that things have changed in terms of how our children develop. It's a whole cultural thing. I know my daughter was in too many what I call baby carriers, so walkers, saucers, swings, bouncers, all of that stuff. I had no idea that she wasn't getting enough movement. To me, she's a baby. She was getting enough. We were letting her kind of creep around and stuff. And I also had to hold her a lot because she was a super fussy baby, like crazy fussy. And I know I've talked to parents who say the same thing, had a really colicky or fussy kid. So all of that impacts it. So if you want to dive into why your child is struggling, you need to look at their brain. You have to go past the IEPs and the tutoring and the psychoed assessments, which all of those have a place, right time, right action, but you want to keep going deeper and looking at what is imbalanced biochemically with my child's brain and what is causing that. So you don't want to just do what I call surface level or just breaking the ground root cause approaches like crazy elimination diets that never get you anywhere, but just eliminating more and more food. And then you also want to look at how the brain is organized. You want to look at development in terms of connections. Is there weak connections? Do they have retained primitive reflexes? Do they have one side of the brain that's overdeveloped, which is why they have these areas of genius, but then these areas of underdevelopment, which is why they have these areas that are being compromised, that are in which they're struggling or having challenges, whether that's with reading, behavior, learning, focus, whatever the case may be. So you're probably thinking at this point, okay, so how do I do that though? Like that's a really overwhelming feat to start looking at the various areas of brain development. So my first suggestion is check out my training, which is this Saturday, how to identify the causes, or the root causes, I should say, of your child's learning, reading, behavior difficulties. And then that's ultimately going to lead you in a direction to find more permanent solutions and, things that basically make you start uncovering what's going on and then correcting it. So you want to work towards corrective solutions as opposed to just relying on compensations, which are permanent or are used typically permanently if you're kind of going the traditional route with like tutoring, IEPs, medication, all of that type of stuff. So do sign up for that. Spots are filling up and I'm almost out of space. I'm keeping it small and intimate because I want it to be I want to be able to help you identify specifically, to talk to you. We're going to go through stuff. What is weak with your child? What is underdeveloped? What could very well be a factor? So I'll put the link for that in the comments below. And if you have any questions, reach out. And as always, tag someone who you think might benefit from hearing this and is wondering what's going on. This can give them a whole lot of clarity. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.